We have some big news to go over today. The Toronto Blue Jays have made an interesting signing as they have signed a former All-Star. I'm going to break down exactly who that is and discuss what this means going forward. But not only that, we had Alek Manoah pitch in an actual game for the first time in a very long time, and the results were interesting to say the least. We also have a few other updates, including a little tidbit on a Jays trade update. But before we get into all, folks, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys again for your continued support over here as we're on the road to 25,000 subscribers, and of course the big goal of 25,000. But folks, a lot to go over today, and obviously let's dive into some interesting things that have happened now, kind of under the radar yesterday, between some trade reports, the draft happening, and of course the home run derby. Is the Toronto Blue Jays making a signing, and it is an interesting one, I guess is the best word to put it here. And you can see here, the Blue Jays and Joe Mantiply agree to a minor league deal. You can see from Thomas Hall, once upon a time, Joe Mantiply was nasty with the D-backs. We'll see if he can get close to that level with the Jays. Now, I'm going to show you his stats. You might not be the most impressed with his stats on the surface. However, bear with me because he is a former All-Star, which is crazy to say, but let's dive into Joe Mantiply. So he is a reliever and he is a lefty. And of course, the Jays are trying to A, get some minor league depth here, but B, like Thomas Hall says, they probably believe that they can turn something around in Joe Mantiply and even just go back to what he was last season. So let's look at his stats. Now this year, yes, a 15.83 ERA. You are reading that correctly. But again, with relievers, ERAs are super crazy. Like Jeff Hoffman has a middling 5 ERA. Let's look back to as early as last season. A very solid reliever. 75 games, 60 innings, a 3.92 ERA. Very respectable. The year before, a little bit less respectable, but still positive WAR, 4.62 ERA. But then just 2 years ago, I guess 3 years ago at this point, in 2022 with the Diamondbacks, he put up a 2.85 ERA and is a former All-Star. And that's what makes things super interesting with the Toronto Blue Jays and this particular player. Now, again, he's a lefty reliever. We'll dive into who the Jays have at the reliever position, specifically regarding lefties. But I think this is a guy that they think they can work some magic on. And of course, following what the Jays have done the past few years with relievers, I mean, we think about Brendan Little. They got him for cash considerations. He's been one of the best lefty relievers in baseball. You think about all the guys they've gotten for basically nothing. Braden Fisher, they got in the Kevin Biggio trade after Kevin Biggio was DFA'd and they could have got picked up for anybody. They clearly have a thing and found a thing for making relievers and turning relievers into very good players. And for a guy who already was a great to elite reliever for a year or two of his career, it's a low downside, high upside move. And you can see this here again, Joe Mantiply, and he is very interested. They also signed Buddy Kennedy as well, if from the Phillies, for those interested in that. But again, he was released by the Diamondbacks in early June, so he was released a while ago, and he has a nice track record and was an important piece of the bullpen for 3 years. He tossed 200 innings with a 3.63 earned run average from 2021 to 2024. Like, that's a very respectable number, especially for a Jays team that, again, has experience with making relievers better than what they were with their previous team. Now, at the same time, there's no debating and no arguing that his ERA this year was really bad. He's been, free agent since June, so no other team has picked him up. That's the thing that makes it a little bit interesting, and he got absolutely shelled in his 10 games this season. 9.2 innings pitched, 17 earned runs with 5 home runs. So, obviously, I'm not saying he's going to come out and be an all-star for the Jays, but he is a former all-star, and given what the Jays have done with other relievers, I'm a little bit encouraged. And again, regarding their lefties, they have Justin Brule. I'd be perfectly fine if you give Joe Mantiply a shot over Justin Brule, because Brule has shown really nothing at the major league level this season, and of course, they don't really have many lefties right now. And Mason Flaherty down in AAA looked pretty good in his, one appearance since getting optioned down, or at least it was good in one of the appearances. The other one's still up in the air. Brendan Little, obviously very elite. But if they want another lefty in the pen, I think I'd probably rather a guy like Joe Mantiply over Justin Brule, even with the bad results this year, because that they have, he's had experience and had success in the past. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. Amir Garrett as well. He's starting to rehab and is with the Jays AAA club. He's another lefty who is on the horizon. And of course, the Jays are ultimately going to be getting a reliever at the deadline. Whether that's a lefty or a righty is still up in the air, but they're going to be getting a reliever at the deadline for sure. And that's going to be, of course, the big question mark is A, who do they get? And B, how do all these trade talks intertwine with each other? And, will they get a reliever with a bat? That's, of course, a big question as well. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on Joe Mantiply. A very interesting one, a former All-Star, and we'll keep you up to date with that. But speaking of keeping you up to date, Alek Manoah made his first start yesterday in the Florida Complex League. And You could see here, they said ahead of time they didn't care about the results at all, and clearly that's being said now because he had a bad outing. And as Manoah progresses, results will of course start to matter again, but today was mainly about getting back on the mound against another team. The good news is he was back on the mound, he looked healthy, he felt great afterwards, health was not a problem. The bad news is he pitched a third of an inning, giving up 3 earned runs, 4 total runs, giving up a hit by pitch, which is, classic for Alek Manoah, leads the league in hit by pitches when healthy, 2 walks, and it wasn't a good start. However, clearly he was rusty, and the command showed that and was evident. Again, hit by 2 walks and hit by pitch. That being said, though, he topped out at 95, basically 94.8 miles per hour, which is very, very encouraging because we know when he was hurt before and some of the problems was getting his velocity up. Manoah is significantly better when he's pitching 94, 95 miles per hour. It's harder when he obviously has a great changeup. He has a really, really good slider. That's his bread and butter, fastball and slider. But when his fastball is 91, 92, we've seen him get shelled in the past because of that. And for him to, you can see there on the right, the pitch velocity, for him to average 94.2 miles per hour with a minimum of 93.5 is extremely, extremely encouraging, especially given the fact that, again, you look at his year average, he is up. His velocity was up. There was an uptick. It doesn't matter about the command right now. And that's, of course, what Ben Nicholson-Smith said as well. John Schneider spoke out after the game and basically said, yeah, the command does not matter at this point because he's going to get that back. It's all about, especially following a Tommy John surgery. You can see there from Thomas Nestico. Manoah is working his way back from Tommy John, and it's great to see that his velocity is back to pre-injury levels. It'll be a gradual ramp up, which may hopefully lead to some extra reinforcements for the Jays. Not worried about the actual outcome. I don't think he was either. The velocity, especially again following a Tommy John surgery, that is the most encouraging sign we could have gotten. Obviously, you would have preferred him to maybe go 1 inning and not give up any runs, or a couple hits even would have been better than giving up and blowing up a little bit. But the command's always going to be a little bit rusty, and for a starting rotation and a bullpen, specifically bullpen that is kind of in the mud right now a little bit. I mean, Tommy Nance, Justin Brule. It's good to see that they're trying to get reinforcements in guys like Joe Mantiply, but for Alek Manoah to come back, and depending on how they get, and the starting pitching market seems a little bit interesting, and if that ends up being too expensive or more expensive than we think, obviously we want Ross Atkins to go ahead and trade for somebody. Getting Alek Manoah back could be a big jump, and 95 mile per hour max is very encouraging. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. And speaking of miles per hour, before we wrap up here, let's look at their 7th round pick. And we'll have a video covering the rest of their draft picks and a few different things here. But they selected an interesting name, Dylan Watson. You can see there, he touched 99 miles per hour. He was recently drafted in 2023. He touched 99 miles per hour in last season with an 80 mile per hour, or mid-80s mile per hour slider. It's good to see the Toronto Blue Jays picking a guy with velocity, obviously, especially at the 7th pick. I mean, to get somebody who can throw nearly 100 miles an hour, he immediately can play as of course not right now, but after a year or 2 or 3, he can immediately play as a bullpen arm. And then maybe 4 or 5 years down the line, they can get him potentially as a starter, going as a starter. But something that touches 99 miles per hour, it's hard to find those guys. It seems like the Rays, even the Athletics, had a bunch. Every team, the Dodgers get a bunch of random guys that throw 100. It's nice to see the Jays take a shot on one. But folks, that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. See you guys later.